Matthew 5, verses 31 and 32. Just two verses, but an interesting subject, dismissing a wife. Our number of the word number that we are going to feature in this section is to dismiss. And again, we're going to show the uninflected words in the Greek grammatical structure of these two verses, and they're highlighted in blue. Dismissing a wife. Well, you have to have marriage to have a wife and to dismiss her. Unfortunately, Western civilization is falling apart. Marriage is becoming obsolete to many people. It's just really a terrible time. This is in 2024. But at the time that this was written, marriage was the thing that a man and a woman would have a contract in and then raise a family. A wonderful system that they had developed, or God had developed from the very beginning. The male and the female, a man and a woman come together and they are one. Now, over the period of time, there were multiple marriages. A man had many wives, but it wasn't that way at the beginning. But now there's no wives. So it's a mess. The world has always been somewhat a mess. But we are not worried about what the world has. We're worried about what God has to say. This is what we want to know and do the right thing with it. So in verse 31, it begins, Erethi they, and it was said, also it was said, but it was said that they, postpositive, oti, that, in the conjunction, bringing these two, that whoever, and there is the other conjunction, ever, should os an apolisi tin gineka of two, whoever should dismiss his wife, doto of ti apostasion, let him give to her a certificate of divorce. 630, dismiss. It's another interesting word, a word in the Greek that has 4 or 5 English words, depending on the context. It changes. Dismiss, wasting away, retired, to loose, which is figuratively for die, and release. So all of these are words, English words that are used for number 630 that appear in the Apostolic Bible Polyglot. So whoever should dismiss his wife. We see in Matthew 4:15 it says, the place and hour already went by, dismiss the multitudes, that having gone forth into the towns, they should buy foods for themselves. Jesus told the disciples. So he uses the word to dismiss, but it's not divorce, but dismissing. Send them away. And then in Luke 6:37, it says, condemn not, and in no way should you be condemned. Dismiss, and you will be dismissed. And now here we have dismissed used in the subject of being forgiven and forgiving other people. Genesis 15:2, it says, and Abram says, Master, O Lord, what will you give to me? For I am wasting away childless. Abraham didn't have a son instead of Ishmael through this maidservant, and he's wasting away. You wouldn't use this dismissing away or forgiven. You wouldn't use retired away. I'm released away. No, none of these fit. I had a difficult time because I don't like putting a lot of English words for one Greek word. If I can help it to not do that, then that's the road I'll take. But in this case, I couldn't. So here we have Abraham wasting away for that in that Greek word. Exodus 33:11, it says, and he retired into the camp. Now that's retired. And that was Moses going back into his tent after talking to God. Now, he didn't dismiss to his tent or waste away, so this retired seemed the best word to be used in this place. Acts 28:25, it says, and being disharmonious with one another, they retired, as Paul having spoken one discourse. So retiring to go away and to leave everything alone that they were involved in. Retired is another word. Now, you wouldn't give to her a certificate of retirement, so that wouldn't make sense. Numbers 20:29, it says, and all the congregation saw that Aaron was loosed, and that is a figure for he died. They saw that he died when Moses, I think, and Joshua came back without Aaron. In Luke 2:29, it says, now loosen your servant, O Master, according to your word, in peace. And that was Simeon at the time that the parents of Jesus came to dedicate him at the temple. Luke 27, Pontius Pilate says, whom do you want that I release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, the one being called Christ? So here we have to loose, or to release. Or loose would be another word. To loose him, you could use loose. Who do you want that I loose to you, or release to you sounds better, so I use that word. So therefore we had all those words: dismiss, wasting away, retired, loose, and release. And his wife, and as I mentioned before, this 1135 gyneka, it could be a woman or a wife, the same Greek word. The English depends on the context. Here we're talking about a wife because divorce is a part of the subject, so it wouldn't just be any woman. And then it says, and let him give to her a certificate of divorce. Doto avti apostasion. Now, this let him give, this is a verb. This is the first time I think I've mentioned a verb. And the him in here is masculine. And we go into the verb thoto. And you don't have to have the masculine in there. Basically, as you'll see, in all these imperatives, it doesn't have masculine. It has third person singular, which could be masculine, he, she, or it. So you don't know. It doesn't have if it was a male or a female, the gender. And this is underneath the verb 1325, didomi, to give, grant, offer, another one with a lot of English words. And then give to her a certificate of divorce. So you could just say here, whoever should dismiss his wife, let give to her a certificate of divorce, and not put the him in there at all. Maybe that's better. Or italicize the him, which I didn't do either one. So a certificate of divorce. We find that out in Deuteronomy 24, 1-3, as far as finding out about marriage and divorce. It says, and if any take a wife, and should live with her, and it shall be, if she should not find favor before him, for he finds in her an indecent thing, then he shall write to her a certificate of divorce, a scroll, certificate of divorce scroll, viblion, apostasion, same Greek word, and shall put it into her hands, and shall send her from out of his house. And going forth, should she become another man's wife, and the last husband should detest her, and should write to her a certificate of divorce scroll and should put it into her hands and send her from out of his house, or her last husband should die, who took her to himself as wife, the former husband sending her out shall not be able to return to take her to himself for a wife, after her being defiled, basically with another man. For it is an abomination before the Lord your God, and you shall not defile the land which the Lord your God gives to you by lot. Well, now, this was in the Mosaic law. Christians are not under the Mosaic law. If you're in Israel, you may be, and they may have this sort of a law still on the books. I don't know. Now, you'll ask, well, what about us Christians? If I divorced my wife, and she went and married somebody else, and the man died, and we got back together again, can I no longer take her back in? Well, it was an abomination to God, an action that was an abomination to God. God would be the one that would determine whether this was the right thing to do or not. I would tend to bend towards the part that it's an abomination to God and not do it. But if a person does, I don't think they're going to go to Gehenna because they did do that. There's nothing in here about going to Gehenna if you do the wrong thing. In Isaiah 50, verse 1, it says, "Thus says the Lord, of what kind is this scroll of the certificate of divorce of your mother, by which I sent her away?" And her here is being Israel. God divorced Israel. And so this is a fact, and we see it again in Jeremiah 3:8, where it says, "For on account of all of which she was overtaken by them, the house of Israel committed adultery, and I sent her out and gave to her a scroll certificate of divorce into her hands." So God has given the certificate of divorce, but Jesus, as we will see, only allows it if the woman has committed adultery, or I suppose the man. We see that in Matthew 19, verses 3 to 9, and we'll go to that. "And it came to pass, when Jesus finished these words, he moved from Galilee and came unto the borders of Judea on the other side of the Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he cured them there. And the Pharisees came forward to him, testing him, and saying to him, Well, is it allowed to a man to dismiss his wife for any reason? And answering, he said to them, Well, did you not read that the one making from the beginning made them male and female? And arson and thele, male and female. It's not husband and wife there. But it says, and he said, on account of this, a man shall leave the father and the mother, and shall cleave to his wife. Geneki here, I think, is talking about a wife, because now he's with her having relations. And the two will be for one flesh. So that no longer are they two, but one flesh. What then God yoked together, let not man separate. Now, God yoking together, how does God yoke somebody together? Marriage has a lot of interesting twists and turns. Today, like I said, there's not very many marriages are falling by the wayside. Well, there's still quite a bit, but I'm not sure the percentage. But if there is any kind of marriage, it's generally through romance. You find somebody, you meet somebody, you like the person, you're both into skiing, and the man likes to ski, and you like to ski, and you're having a lot of fun skiing, so you decide to get married. Then later in life, one breaks a leg, can't ski, and the other one still wants to ski, and the other one doesn't want to anymore. So you got a mess. You got people. So it's not a good reason for getting married just because you have something in common. Then you can have a romance can be a reason for a marriage. You could go and see a beautiful movie, a very romantic movie, and your heart is like, oh, this is so wonderful. The image that you see on the screen with a girl or a girl with a boy, and you decide, we're going to get married because we really love each other. And so you get married, and hopefully it will last. Then there were arranged marriages that the father would find somebody generally for his daughter, a man for his daughter to marry her, somebody that was of the same religion, of the same tribe maybe, and the father would know what the wife needs and what the boy would need, and tries to arrange it that way. Then there were people that were paid to be people that set up marriages, and that was in the movie Fiddler on the Roof, where he had a woman, I believe, that she would arrange people to get married that she thought that would be good together. So you have all these ways of marriage. Another one was a shotgun wedding, where a man or a boy had relations with a girl, not rape, but just married her, had relations with her, sex with her, and she became pregnant. The father found out, and he grabbed his shotgun, went after the boy, found him, and says, "You're getting married." And off he went to the justice of the peace, and the two were married. So that was called a shotgun wedding. Not a good way to start, but maybe, who knows how good it went. Now, I believe even in the cause of rape, a man is caught would have to marry the woman, I believe. I'm not real sure on that. So Jesus says the two become one flesh, so that no longer are they two but one flesh. What God has yoked together, let not a man separate. So now, no, you're not to separate it. And then they say to him, well, why then did Moses give charge to give a scroll of divorce, which we read earlier, and to dismiss her? And Jesus says to them that, well, Moses, for the hardness of your heart, committed to your care to dismiss your wives. But from the beginning, it happened not thus. So, no, you're not to dismiss your wife. But, he says, and I say to you that whoever should dismiss his wife, not for harlotry. So now he's making the exception here. Harlotry would be adultery, basically. The spouse have relations with another person. So here we got the wife and the husband doing the husband apparently gives out the scroll of divorce, not the wife. And should dismiss his wife not for harlotry, and should marry another woman, commits adultery. And the one being dismissed, marrying, commits adultery. And his disciples say to him, well, if thus is the fault of the man or the husband with the wife, it's not husband here, it's anthropou, so that's man, with the gynekos, with the wife, it is not advantageous to marry. But he said to them, well, not all have space for this word, but to the ones whom it has been given, they do, basically. For there are eunuchs who from out of the mother's belly were procreated thus, and there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who made eunuchs of themselves on account of the kingdom of the heaven. The one being able to have space, take this in. So not being married is the ideal, pretty much in the Bible, for a person to be dedicated to God, but marriage is, to me, is a sacred contract, and it should be that way. Now go back to our text in 32, it says, ego they, lego imin, oti os an apolisi, gineka av tu. There is the they, postpositive particle, say to you. Oti is that is a conjunction, tying together. Whoever, tying what he's saying to the subject, whoever should dismiss his wife, except for the matter of harlotry, makes her to commit adultery. Paraktos logu pornias, except for the matter of harlotry. Pi aftin michaste, makes her to commit adultery. Ke os ean apolelimenin gamisi mikate. And whoever, I changed this from because of 6:30, and whoever should marry one being dismissed commits adultery. Now I'm going to go back up to another verb, show you how the verbs work, and if you have the analytical lexicon, which this is a page of, you can see the word apolio, and to release, dismiss, divorce, loose, waste away, retire. And here, what does it say? This is participle, perfect middle passive, feminine accusative singular. So here it is in the feminine. So we know because of the ending that it's feminine. And originally the word in the subjunctive, apolisi, aorist active, past tense, subjunctive means should, you should. In the first person, a third person singular is he, she, or it. Doesn't say the sex, he, she, or it should. So now we go back up there and we see that 6:30, here it is, should, whoever should, and that doesn't say, it's talking about a man because it's here, the who is in the masculine, but you don't know it from the verb. Whoever man should dismiss his wife, and then down here, os, again, is a pronoun, and os is who in the masculine, should dismiss again. And so, the man, whoever, should marry one being dismissed. Now, the ending here is in the feminine, so you know it's a woman being dismissed. We'll go more into the verbs later as we go through the Greek grammar structures of these sections. But harlotry, except for pornias, 42:02, harlotry. We see in Genesis 38:24, it mentions Tamar, the daughter-in-law of Judah, one of the 12 sons of Israel, or Jacob. And Judah's, I think it was 2 sons, married to Tamar and died. And so she became a bad luck as far as Judah was concerned. And so he didn't want to give his next son to her. So he didn't do that. But then Tamar found out that he was going out on a trip. And so she went on the side of the road where he was going, dressed up as a harlot. He went into her, had relations. His wife had died and had relations. And she got pregnant. And then the people here in 38:24 said, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, fornicated. And behold, she has one in the womb out of her harlotry. So there's the harlotry is the fornication, the daughter-in-law, having sex outside of the approved way. So then later Judah had said for her to be killed or stoned, and then she showed him the things that he gave to her because he didn't have the money to pay her correctly. And then she showed them the things, and this is who the man that owned these is the father. And so Judah said that she was righteous in what she did. Numbers 14:33 says, But your sons will be fed in the wilderness 40 years. and they shall bear your harlotry, until whenever your carcasses should be consumed in the wilderness. Here the harlotry was a spiritual harlotry, people of Israel going after another god in the wilderness. And then in Mark 7:21, Jesus says, "For from inside, from out of the heart of men, evil thoughts go forth, adulteries, harlotries, murders." These things are from the heart, and as we mentioned, it's inside of us. The things will be how we decide to do things. Well, what causes us to make a decision one way or the other. 1 Corinthians 5:21 says, "Harlotry," as Paul says, "harlotry is wholly heard among you, and such harlotry which not even among the nations is named, so as for one to have his father's wife." Now, it wouldn't have been his mother's, probably his stepmother. So that was harlotry. 1 Corinthians 6:18, it says, "Every sin whichever a man should commit is outside of the body, but the one committing harlotry sins against his own body." The next section is Jesus teaches on oaths.